So for a few people who've just joined in the last few minutes, hopefully you're in the right place. Web-based tracking. This is the part of the first series under the Made Smarter Innovation Network, and it's the second webinar in that first series. So hopefully you're going to enjoy this one. Hopefully you've come back from the first one and you can come and join some of the rest as we progress through this subject and this interesting area. So without further ado, KTN, obviously we are putting this event on for you. We really are here to help connect you, the innovators, partners and new opportunities. I think one of the things that people think of the KTN a lot about is that almost dating, that connection piece, but I'd really like to push home the message to you that we are more than that. We're not just here to simply put you in contact with people, we're here to challenge your thinking. We're trying here to make you think in different ways, think in different sectors, think about different opportunities, and we really want to make you as good as you can be and be world class. We are here to build those communities and networks to really make the UK as good as it can be. So how do we do that? Well, we have got a number of deep expertise in a number of different areas. Obviously, this is very much about digital manufacturing today, but we've got people in lots of different areas. Myself, I work in the agri-food team, generally around food manufacturing, but I've got colleagues in crops and in livestock. And then we look across a number of different areas. And it really is, when you look at different areas, you realize how many different areas are interdependent on different things that can make a difference to one particular area or not. So hopefully through this series and today, you're going to find examples of great work that's being done that can be applied to a number of different areas. So that's kind of the day job, working in our own little internal silos as such, but we do very much enjoy working cross sectors. So myself from the agri-food team working with the manufacturing team, it's great. But when there's a really big opportunity, what we do in KTN is we create an innovation network. And part of the delivery team today really is an innovation network. And that's where we spend a little bit more time, a little bit more structure, and we really delve into it. And we look at an area such as digital manufacturing, know that it can make a massive difference to the UK. And we really work together across KTN to make it as strong as possible with powerful connections. So, Made Smarter Innovation Network. There's a little bit of history to it. It started with the review back in 2016-17, led by Jürgen Meyer. And at that time, he was in charge of Siemens. And what happened there was he came up with 4 enablers: adoption, innovation, leadership, and skills. The first bit of work around that was the adoption piece. And many of you may know about the Northwest Pilot. Now, that was a scheme where you're really trying to drive adoption through grant funding. And that has been very successful, say, in the Northwest. And as a result of that, it's recently been rolled out to the Northeast, Yorkshire and the Humber, and also the West Midlands. So that's the adoption piece. Leaderships and skills, that's been delivered in a different form through Ingenuity via the Engage platform, and they're dealing with that. But the innovation is the real big bit that we're closely involved in, and comes through the funding delivered through Innovate UK and their Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund of Made Smarter. So Made Smarter is not simple, and because it's not simple, that makes it a great place for KTN to come and deliver. We do things that aren't simple. We're trying to challenge people, as I said earlier, to make things as good as possible. So as we look into this, Made Smarter is a number of different areas which all interlink. And again, that interlinking hard work is the bit that KTN, we're here to try and help you navigate and get the answers to. As we'll see, the traditional CR&D is the Innovate UK competitions. We've had the fast start with supply chain, and we're in the middle of smart factory. There's also the hubs, and international investment, as well as accelerators and things like that. So there's a lot going on, and it may look a little bit confusing to you at times, and it may look, and some of these slides that we've got here are kind of to make it look confusing, but also to give you the reassurance that there are people behind it. As I say, we are a network. We are people here to help you, to guide you through those processes. And as you can see, we've mapped all those areas that are required within the Made Smarter Innovation Network to have the people working hard for you on the inside of KTN to hopefully make it as easy as possible for you to navigate that. So as you say, we've got activities planned across all these sectors and technology areas. We've got people within those areas using networks they already know and established to try and bring them together and make it easier. We certainly don't do any reinventing. We try and maximize what skills, networks, and expertise there already. Apologies, there's a little bit of noise in the background. There's as always seems to be somebody doing something at home. And we're also out there being very nosy. We are all very nosy people in the KTN. We want to know what you're up to, what your problems are, what your challenges are, how we can help you overcome those, offer you new ideas and solutions to make a difference. We really are here to push you and make a change. So we are seeking out those stories of change. To say, it looks very messy, looks very complicated, but we know what we're doing. So please, if you're coming from a particular sector or particular technology, come through to the team here at KTN, and we'll do that hard work for you in the background within our organisation, and hopefully come back to you with some suggestions, some help, and some ways to really make a difference to your business. Cool. Right, so that's enough about KTN and himself. You're here to hear from our great panel of speakers today. We're very excited that we've got these people together, and thank you to colleagues who've got this pool of people together. We're really going to go through a journey today. We're going to look at how someone's made it happen, how he's developed that solution for them, how people are innovating within this space of supply chains, and how people have got technology to support it that's been around for a number of years. So the first person up is going to be Mandy Ridyard. Mandy's from Produmax, who are a precision engineering business. Unfortunately, Mandy can't be with us today, but she very kindly recorded the presentation that Kevin's just getting up on the screen for you now, and we'll hear from that. If you've got any questions, you think you might forget them, please just drop them into the chat box and we'll try and pick them up later. But yeah, over to this. Kevin, thank you very much for playing this.
So hello everyone, my name's Mandy Ridyard and I'm the owner of Produmax. We're an engineering company based just outside of Bradford, and we're global experts in flight control components and assemblies. So for those of you that don't know what that means, we make the bits that make the flaps work when you sit on an aeroplane, if ever we get to do that again, and take off or land. But we make lots of other things too from metal. So basically we take bits of metal, bash them around a bit into components and then assemble them together. And predominantly we work for the aerospace industry, although we do make parts for the energy sector, we make parts for defence, plus a few other sectors. So really busy. We have now opened a second facility as a collaboration at Silverstone, which is looking at additive manufacture, which is really interesting. But I can tell you more about what we do. A few highlights: 70% of what we manufacture we export, and we export worldwide, in fact everywhere apart from Europe. We have around about 75 people, and everything we do is focused on developing our people and innovation. So why do we like to innovate? Well, I think this Jack Welch comment sums it all up. If the world's moving faster than you are, then you're not going to move around for that long. So what we established a while ago, before we went through a transformation project, was that we probably needed to change. And we probably needed to change because we guessed we had low productivity. It's not something that we had a handle on, but what we knew was that the UK's productivity was lower than the most of the G7. We knew that the North's productivity was lower than the South, and we knew that SME's productivity was lower than large companies. And bearing in mind that we're a Northern SME, we didn't think took a brain surgeon to work out that we probably had low productivity. And so we got involved in a project called Sharing in Growth and started to go through a business transformation project. And that has really transformed everything that we do. And when we started working on that, we started to look at what we see as the cogs of productivity. And these were actually described by the National Productivity Framework, which was an organisation set up by government and chaired by Sir Charlie Mayfield to look at how we increase UK productivity. And when they did the study, and they came out with the three main areas. So businesses need to look at their leadership, their engagement, and their technology. So it's not just about technology adoption. We need to look at leadership and engagement, so people things as well as the technology, and put the three things together. So as a business, we went through a program and started to look at how to become better leaders. So we set up a vision, a mission and values, and our vision is to be engineering superheroes. We also looked at how we engaged our people behind that. And we've done lots of work, which I'd love to tell any of you about, but we haven't got time today. However, the consequences of that is that we now have world-class employee engagement as measured by the Harvard survey. At the same time, we increased our technology. So we retrofitted automation where we could, but we also invested in new technology. And we didn't just look at our machines that make the products, we looked at the digital processes behind that. So we tried to give not only our people a voice in our engagement, but our machines a voice in our engagement. And by doing so, we can now measure in real time what our machines are doing, which we weren't able to do before. But we've also applied that digital, those digital processes to every bit of our business. So from booking a holiday is now digital, to clocking is now digital. And the reason that that digitization is critical is if you look at what are the most heavily automated countries in the world, and Japan is one of them, even though they're heavily automated, their productivity actually isn't any better than the UK's. And the thinking is that that's because they haven't digitized at the same rates that they have automated. So as a company, we've tried to do all of those things, and we've been successful in a lot of it, although we've had lots of learns and fails along the way, but that's all part of growing up, I guess. So the cause of productivity are really important, but as is innovation. Really, there's no substitute for innovation. Innovation is something that's critical to developing your business. But from our point of view, it's not innovation itself, it's about adoption of innovation. And that's one of the things we've been trying to do. So if you look at diffusion of innovation and you look at the bell curve as defined in the literature, you can see that we have the true innovators, the people who come up with the wheel, invent it from scratch. And then the early adopters, so the first people to then use that innovation to speed up their processes. So rather than reinvent the wheel, use that wheel to make their processes better. And then that's followed by the majority, and then eventually those who really don't want to change at all. And as a business, we try and work in the early adoption zone. So for all of the processes in our business, we try to make sure that we keep our eyes on what's going on in the world, what's going on in the innovation landscape. We work with all the actors within innovation, so the KTN, the catapults, everybody that we can do to make sure that we are in that 13.5% that adopt innovation early. And really, that's why I'm here to talk to you today. It's about the piece of work we've won an Innovate grant for in a collaborative bid to solve a problem that we have. So a problem that we have as a business is we have a very complex supply chain. So our raw material comes from lots of places across the world. And in aerospace, we have a lot of governance. So we have to track that raw material back to source, so to the actual mill it was made. And every delivery that we get in has to be allocated a unique number, which we call a goods in wood number. We then have to manufacture those materials to make our finished goods through multiple processes. And every process must link that gin to the machine and the operator that it's made on. And lots of our products might go through 10 different machines. So you can imagine the amount of data that that's picking up. Many of our products then are subcontracted for special processes, so treatments or coatings. And those products are sent to various suppliers, and those suppliers can be all over the world again. And sometimes that happens once, twice, or 3 times. So we manufacture a bit, they get sent out for processing, back in again, back out again. It really is the hokey cokey of manufacturing. So we again need to track all of those documents, and then we deliver those things worldwide. And what we'd like to do is to be able to deliver that worldwide with a complete digital thread. But what we actually do is deliver that worldwide with a series of paper that links all of those things together. So the reason that digital thread is important is that it makes sure that our communication is accurate. So the first thing isn't just about where the raw material comes from, it's about where it is on its way to us. Because if we know that the material that was due in this week is actually going to be 2 weeks late, we reduce our lost time because we now have accurate, in real-time comms, not waiting for phone calls and management time to chase things up. The same thing for our subcontract. If we have visibility of our subcontract, we can actually let our customers know when they're going to get their product more accurately. So all of those things help us to, in real time, understand the situation and moderate our processes or our customers' processes around those to make sure that we don't lose time in terms of manufacture. By connecting data, we increase productivity. And that's really from the beginning of this presentation is one of the key things that we're trying to do as a business. So we're reducing the amount of paperwork that we have. We're able to plan better. We're able to see where everything is at any one time. And it's a very complex supply chain, so that's really important. We'll be able to produce a product passport that lives with the material. And finally, within the piece of work that we want to do is we want to understand the condition of our goods. So we want to understand, has anything happened to them along the way? So if between here and the Philippines, something has happened that might make our goods not fit for purpose, we can start to address that problem earlier than we would in terms of the distance and time it takes to get those parts to the Philippines. And so to do all of this, we're part of a project sponsored by Innovate. And that project is called From Me to You, or To Me to You, as in the words of the Chuckle Brothers. And it involves 4 players. So there are 2 digital companies, so Elements Technology and Pathfinder, who are working on the really whiz-bang part of that. The AMRC in Rotherham, who have convened the project, and who will be working with Elements Technology and Pathfinder to actually put all of that kit together and test it in a laboratory environment. And then we will be at the end testing that in a real-time environment. And so we're hoping that not only will that solve the problem that we have, but ultimately that will increase our productivity and will help us as an SME stay in the earlier adoption of technology that I outlined at the beginning. So I hope that gives you a flavour of what we're doing. I think, you know, if you want to know any more, I'm sure some of the guys here will be able to explain more of it. But if you've got any questions, I'm sorry I can't be there today, but you're very welcome to email me and I'll answer them if I can. Thank you.
That's great. That's a great start from Mandy. And I didn't think I'd ever be listening to a presentation that went from engineering superheroes to the Chuckle Brothers. Very strange, but good to hear, and very nice there. The way that people are very important to that process to make that innovation happen. So great. So that's Mandy talking about the challenge. This leads us through to Joe from Elements Technology, who's mentioned in there, who is hopefully going to take the screen over for me now and talk about how their technology is going to solve that challenge of connecting where all those bits are for the flappy bits for the wings, as was stated. Joe, over to you.
Morning, everyone. So I'm going to take you through a bit of our journey really over the last 2 going on 3 years, and give you a sneak peek of what we're actually going to be doing on the project, what we think we're going to end up with at the end. So why won't that let me click through? There we go. So for anybody who doesn't know who we are, what we do really is we try and enhance communication and visibility of production processes, predominantly within a company, but also outside of a company. We're really focused on doing it in the most simple, intuitive way. So using technologies that people are already familiar with, and not really adding anything unnecessarily complicated. So using a mobile app and a web dashboard. So at the heart of our software is the mobile app. So it's an Android app which replaces the paper job sheet. So it's not adding anything new. It's not doing anything complicated. All it's doing is taking the information that would normally be on a paper job sheet and putting it into the app. So customer name, key dates, descriptions, even drawings can be added to the app. And then what you've also got, instead of a list of tasks that are going to be initialed and dated, you can actually get more information about them. So we've got this checklist that uses contactless technology, so near field communication. And using that, people can tag when they have started and ended tasks. So completely time-stamped to the second. We can identify who's done what. You can also write in comments. You can take photos. So all these kind of extra things that you get with a mobile phone compared to paper is available in the app. So what that means is that it doesn't matter whether you're making timber frames or you're packing veg box or making aerospace components, it's configurable to you. And because it's all digital, and this is a crucial thing, it means it's instantly available to other people. So I could be in Seattle and I could log into elements.technology and I can see all the work that's been done, any photos that are taken, any comments that are left, I can view instantly. So it's that live visibility across the company, that single point of truth, which is where we kind of fit in. And we've always had that in mind, but we've gone through a little bit of a journey. So this is what our software looked like about 2 years ago, really. So after gaining investment, I think we created our first version within about 4 or 5 months. Which was amazing considering there was only 2 developers on work. And much the same, using an app, you could track the process, but there was less kind of information shared back to the operators on the factory floor. It was a bit more simplified. But the idea was that we capture data on the factory floor and then we spit it out into a PDF. So we're automating the digitization of the paperwork. But as soon as we gave it to some beta testers, what we found was that it wasn't the people on the factory floor who were getting the biggest benefit, it was actually the sales and accounts teams. Because what it meant was if somebody called up and said, well, what is there an update with my order? Normally, right, give me 5 minutes, I'll go down to the factory floor and I'll ask the production manager and then they won't know, they'll ask somebody else and they'll ask somebody else. Next thing you know, 3 or 4 people have just wasted 5-10 minutes of their time. Whereas actually with software where you can view it instantly, someone calls up, you're like, oh yeah, I can tell you it's 73% along, it'll be with you in a couple of days. So instantly it was improving customer service, which was way, way beyond what we kind of were expecting. So being the kind of people that we are, we're like, right, how can we improve that? Can we actually cut out that phone call? So we started looking at order tracking software or order tracking capabilities in other industries. So logistics and delivery being the most obvious one. It is unheard of these days for you to get a delivery and not have an email telling you whereabouts it is. It doesn't tell you loads of information. It's largely a placebo, other than the bit where it's going to be delivered on this day. But the fact that you can see, especially for ones where, say, they're coming from China, you can see where that things are happening. And we thought, can we bring that to manufacturing? It's going to be a bit more difficult because it's not such a prescribed process. As you can see here, it's collected, at sortation, in transit, delivered. So we came up with a solution. I think we actually made it in about a month, maybe. So what we did was we added the ability for you to add a customer name and allow that customer to track an order. So if that little box is ticked in the middle there and email is provided, what happens is that customer will receive an email as soon as that order started. And if I click on my order, I see this screen, I can see what phases of work have been completed and which are in progress. And yeah, we put this has remained unchanged really over the last 2 years. So we made this, but what we found was that because we're working with B2B companies, and this is really more of a B2C application, it's more of a B2C feature. the use of it hasn't been as much as we kind of expected. And then ever since then, we've been trying to work out a way to come up with something a bit more B2B friendly. So when the Made Smarter and Innovate UK digitalizing supply chains competition came out, we thought we'd go for it. So we went for something, and we got help from Nick and from Kevin and several people at the KTN, and luckily we were successful. And yeah, this has resulted in us having a project called To Me To You, and I will take credit for that title, or me. I am hoping to get the remaining Chuckle brother to a video for us in the same way we got Barry from EastEnders to a video last summer. And yeah, like Mandy said, a couple of us technology companies, the AMRC are involved, and then Produmax will be our testing what we create and see if it's useful. And yeah, what we're trying to do is we're trying to combine the trackable technology that I've just shown you with some mathematics and a feature that we already have and is a lot more used. So we try and go away from the idea of saying that we're machine learning and AI and predictive analytics, but we have that. We have that in the background. If you've done an order 5 times, we've got the maths in the background that will predict how long that order is going to take and provide you all the details around it. The scary thing is this is a shortened amount of information compared to what our CTO wanted to put, which he wanted to tell you that it was using guessing distributions and all sorts. So yeah, a compromise. But ultimately, when you put in an order, it's going to tell you how long it's going to take, and we can monitor that as we go along the process. So in combination with the trackable feature, what we're looking to build is a B2B supply chain portal, where as a customer, I can see all the work that I've ordered and see where it's up to, and ultimately get lots of crucial information earlier than I ever would have before, and easier than I ever would have before. So yesterday I started sketching out some of the screen designs, very, very similar to what you've seen before of our docket product. So the idea being that I'd select my customer in here, and as a customer, and the supplier portal would look very, very similar. I'll be able to see all my suppliers. I'll be able to see suppliers with ongoing work. And once I select these, I can see all the jobs that I've got. So Branson Refrigeration are doing 12 jobs for me, and I can see where they're up to. I can see whether they're on schedule, behind schedule. I can see if any documents have been uploaded. I'll be able to download those. So we're going to be looking at how we can combine those. So almost like a schema. So ahead of it even completing, if any documents are uploaded, I'll be able to review them. So that idea of reducing lost time that Mandy said, rather than things getting sent out and then getting to you and they're wrong, you can actually do these double checks before they get anywhere close to you. The other thing that we'll be doing is we'll be looking at delivery. So working with Pathfinder. So a bit of information about Pathfinder. They do asset tracking using little GPS and Bluetooth trackers. And what they're going to be doing is creating what they're describing as smart asset contracts. So using location to identify when an order has been dispatched, when it's been delivered, and automating that sign-off process. And at the back end of the project, we're going to be pulling that data in. So for each item, we'll be able to see when it's been dispatched and where from, when we're expecting delivery, as well as potentially the current location. And I will kind of stress that this is all very much this is what it could look like and will be very similar to this, largely because it's very similar to what our current software looks like. It's going to be pretty easy to build. And yeah, this full history of all the jobs that have been completed. So the ability to recall paperwork and see where things have been up to. And it's really what we're doing is we're automating this whole process by the order tracking process. All this will be powered by our existing docket. So rather than using paperwork and using a mobile app to track an order, will power every single bit of this. And we're going to add in the ability to share photographs and all manner of things. But that's going to be informed by a steering group that we're going to be performing over the next month or so with the AMRC, finding out exactly what, from a customer point of view, you want to see, and from a supplier point of view, what you're happy to share. And yeah, it's going to be quite cool. I'm really looking forward to it. What I've not even shown here is the inventory solution that we've been building over the last 3-4 months, which looks insane. And we'll plug in. So very soon we will have the process, the people, the materials, and already we've been speaking to some kind of traditional sensor and IoT companies about how we add in machinery as well. So suddenly, by early next year, we could have a full picture of a manufacturing process using some NFC stickers, some mobile phones, and some cheap plug and play sensors. And it's this idea of the smart factory, but actually very, very achievable. So yeah, that's us. If you want to find out more information, you can visit our website, check out our blogs. So I'm going to be giving updates on the To Me To You project on our blog, which you can find at elementstechnology.co.uk. The other thing is to follow us on Twitter or LinkedIn. Twitter's the one which is probably most regularly updated. And yeah, that's me.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Joe, for that passionate recollection of your story so far and where it's going. And it did immediately give me that question of when's this project going to happen and go on, but I'll go and follow the blogs and do it that way. That'd be great. So brilliant to see how yourself and our first speaker, Mandy, are working together, and even better to hear that Katie and I've had some role in that. So great. So as we move on quickly now, Eser, are you okay to take over the screen? Eser's going to, is from Everledger, is going to talk about that role of creating trust within those supply chains. So you're up there. We're not quite. Yep. Oh no, that's it. I think we're about there. So Eser, over to you.
I'm Eser Torun. I'm the Chief of Staff at Everledger. We are a digital transparency company. I joined Everledger 3 years ago from a long career in investment banking. I was a mentor to Everledger when they first started in Barclays Accelerator. 3 years ago, I decided to quit my career in investment banking and joined Everledger, mainly because I love the positive change they are committed to make in the world. And that's very much about bringing more transparency and trust, as well as sustainability to complex supply chains, but also amazing customer experiences. And I think that's where the power comes from, because of course that engagement creates power. I will refer to some technologies throughout my presentation. Some of them are quite well talked about, but just to make sure we are all on the same page, I just want to basically give quick intro to them. Blockchain is certainly quite popular across supply chain transparency conversations. It's basically the way I describe blockchain in a very simple form. It's basically internet where participants in a permission form can contribute data in a secured way and share the data contributed by others real time. It's all immutable, it's all secure, and it's all verifiable. Artificial intelligence, again, Joe did a great job to touch parts of it in terms of analytics, smart data ingestion and normalization, and that's very much how we use artificial intelligence as well. Internet of Things, that's very much basically connecting an object to a software by tracking basically that object's whereabouts as well as characteristics. And that could be sensors, temper detectors, as well as intelligent labeling. And when I say intelligent labeling, again, we have NFC, RFID applications like the chip in the credit cards, as well as QR. Blockchain is our underlying system. And why blockchain? I get asked a lot. So when it comes to tracking and secure tracking of an object, most labels, unfortunately, can be faked. NFC is the strongest in the space, but even then, there are certainly examples at advanced level. Counterfeit could be possible, quite rare, but it could be possible. What blockchain does, that distributed and collective authentication of an asset. Therefore, it basically makes any counterfeit or temper on the information infeasible. I'd like to share a very quick video to talk about our value proposition, and then go slightly into the detail of the platform to show you how it works.
Every object has a good story to tell, but how do you turn that good story into good business? Welcome to the Everledger platform. Using blockchain and IoT technology, we shine a light on all the unique steps that make your product, its origins, its journey, the reasons to love it. Everledger helps everyone to trust what they buy. Our secure platform unboxes the lifetime story of any product, from diamonds to clothes, to wine bottles and electric vehicle batteries, to grow sales and protect your brand against counterfeiting. You can generate new demand from like-minded suppliers and buyers, showcase your sustainability record, and make claims with backed-up evidence about the reasons to love your product, and invite partners and customers to tap into your world. Fully customizable, secure by blockchain technology, and faster than ever. Make transparency a good story for your business with the Everledger platform.
Hello and welcome to Danish Ward Cities ABC Open Business.
I think the next YouTube video is got
not to stop. Apologies for that.
Okay, that's fine.
Here we go. So coming back to our platform. So the way basically I describe it is that Everledger identified it at the top. It's basically an ability for manufacturers, for producers to put any details they want about their product, their characteristics, their origin, their provenance, as well as the sustainability footprint. We have API connections to manufacturers or even mines when the product requires that, in the case of diamonds, for example, or gemstones, and we capture basically that data straight to the blockchain, and where basically a verification of that data is required. Again, on the blockchain, we have auditors or other certification agencies to verify, but there are instances where basically manufacturer has got the full information about the provenance and origin characteristics of a particular asset, and we are able to capture that directly from the producer. Underlying that Everledger platform, that blockchain-based platform, where participants basically can contribute across the supply chain and validate the information, but also for retailers or consumers to search and basically find out about the origin of their product, where their diamond ring comes from, where their bottle of wine comes from. We got business services underneath, which enables secure sharing of data, but also transfer of asset ownership across the platform. And finally, the Hyperledger Fabric is the blockchain platform, and that's a permissioned blockchain where basically data of the participants is secure. So it's different from public blockchains, and therefore energy consumption of our platform is completely different from cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin or anything else you might hear in that space, which is quite energy inefficient. So identifying your product includes a number of steps, creating digital identity, security layer, provenance. I'd like to go quickly into that to basically show that, like identity, enabling again manufacturers to qualify, to share the quality characteristics or production details of their product. Security layer for products like wine, apparel, batteries. We use smart labeling, tamper-proof labeling, and that creates unique identity for each asset that's logged to the blockchain. And therefore, each asset has got their provenance record, that it is where they come from. Again, in the example of gems and minestones, emerald is the example here. You can trace it back to the emerald and see the sustainability footprint across the value chain. It's completely flexible and customizable in terms of manufacturers to create their own experiences, their branding, including different functionality. And it is all in the tap of a smartphone. You can just tap the item and you can basically connect to the provenance journey on blockchain. Both manufacturers, retailers, customers, they have their own vault where they can see their assets, and they can also receive assets, asset ownership in a digital form in their vault, or they can make the transfer and they can see the history of those transactions as well. Analytics is again super powerful, enabling manufacturers to be really engaged with their products. The challenge right now, once a product leaves manufacturer premises, they have no idea other than the feedback, of course, they get from their customers in terms of where it goes, where it is consumed, and how often basically that product is engaged by the customer. So what this technology changes and transforms completely, giving the manufacturer full power and understanding about the engagement of customer has with their products in terms of geographical footprint, in terms of how often it could be resold, for example, in the second-hand market. It gives full understanding and visibility for a manufacturer to create that engagement with their customer base. In some cases, and I'd like to start maybe bringing all this together with the benefits of the platform. Some of our customers use this technology for increased efficiencies as well. RFID is certainly used in the context of inventory management, and of course analytics is really helpful to understand how manufacturers can achieve cost and time efficiencies with enhanced traceability. Longer customer lifetime value, certainly because of that engagement and power of digitalization. Greater brand equity and protection. We have seen these examples, especially when it comes to engaging new generation consumers, how they interact with their assets, how they basically create communities on our platform in blockchain, to share their items, to even attend events where their items are demonstrated. So it's an amazing way to create new customer experiences. And finally, of course, that increased inventory turn as the turnover is higher. I'd like to show an example. So as you've seen in video, we have multiple applications of our technology. That includes diamonds, gemstones, wine and spirits, apparel, clothing, batteries, food. But what I would say, it is certainly asset agnostic. So we are very much currently working with people, early adopters to the earlier presentation. But I can easily see is this basically this technology evolves, we will certainly have a completely much broader asset application. So we are very much encouraging interest from all products. Coming back to wine and spirits example, just to again wrap up. So this is how we look at the value chain. Every single participant of the supply chain is mapped out and they are onboarded to the platform, or we can create that manufacturer, retailer, and consumer, or we can create manufacturer to consumer experience as well. So there are multiple applications of that. This is a lovely example. So I can certainly put big brands like Diageo here that certainly we work with, but I'd like Montancle example. They're a small distillery in Australia, in rural Australia. They do lovely product. They're a craft producer, fine spirit, local ingredients, and they'd like to distinguish themselves. They'd like to expand their customer base, and they chose Everledger to achieve that. And for me, this is a great example of how an amazing business with impressive sustainability credentials can tell their story, can tell their product story, enabled by technology. I have a quick demo of our solution here to show, again, you know, like when you tap the product, you basically connect to blockchain, and blockchain retrieves the information about the spirit. This is completely customizable. The manufacturer can create how this should look like, the videos, any metadata they would like to add, pictures. They can put tips in terms of how you want to drink that particular item. And you can see basically step by step the origin of that bottle. And you can go to the vault where you log in with your credentials, and you can see basically your assets, your digital assets, real time. And here where you can initiate the transfer of your assets. You can, of course, see the vault both as a receiver of the asset and the owner of the asset. So that's basically that real-time engagement on blockchain again across all participants in the supply chain. Again, when you go to the application, both incoming and outgoing items are there. And again, this is an example of spirits, but we have exact same applications in clothing and other items as well. So this is all from me. Thank you very much.
We've got Harshal Gore from GS1, which was actually a big learning for myself quite recently, how you know, the barcodes are the same all around the world, and Harshal's going to talk a little bit about standards. And I can see you've got that up now nicely, Harshal, so over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. Morning, everyone, or nearly afternoon. Looking forward to giving you an update on what GS1 is and kind of background, a bit of a different slant to the previous presentation. So I'm going to give a kind of different view on kind of identification and supply chain and value chains. I mean, just a bit of background. Harshal Gore, I'm Industry Engagement Director for GS1 UK. Been with GS1 over 20 years. and look after our core sectors, which is mainly retail marketplaces and healthcare. So a bit about kind of GS1. Go to the next slide. There we go, that worked. So a bit about GS1. I mean, the previous presentation talked a lot about technology and blockchain and AI and Internet of Things. And where GS1 comes in from a global point of view is we set global status standards for the value chain. So, and provide that common language between trading partners. So without that common language and that single way of understanding the product, it makes it very difficult for trading partners to talk to each other. So that's kind of where GS1 comes in. And, we've been around for 40 years, and it's kind of a lot of people say to me, it's the best kept secret in the world, because every one of you on this call today touches a GS1 number, because the GS1 number sits on pretty much every single retail product around the world, because the number that sits underneath the barcode on a consumer product that you buy is issued by GS1, and we manage and govern that number for every single company around the world, whether it's in the retail sector or the healthcare sector. So yeah, we are unique, and that we uniquely provide that number, and once we issue that number, that product is scannable all around the world by any company. And as I said, most retailers all over the world are reliant on GS1 to deliver these standards. So we'll move on. So yeah, so the other big benefit of GS1 is we're global. Our GS1 standards are of global nature. It allows efficient cross-border trade and bridging the physical and digital worlds. And yeah, allows that friction-free movement of goods. So allows those multinational organizations to trade globally using the common language, whether it's upstream or downstream with their supply chain partners. And without those standards, it would make it very difficult for those organizations to trade with each other, because yeah, you can imagine there will be then thousands of different terminologies and requirements between organizations. So the main elements of our standards are, we describe it as identify, capture, share. So previously in the presentation, someone talked about in the aerospace sector, the GIN number. In the GS1 world, we have something called the GTIN, which is the global trade item number, which identifies products, which identifies people, which identifies location, which identifies asset, and it's a globally agreed identification standard for the things I've just described. The second part of it is called capture, which is essentially what's the physical marking on a product, which is a barcode, the classic barcode, or a QR code, or RFID, or any type of new sensors that are coming out. And then the third bit, which is probably the most important bit, is the sharing of information between trading partners, having that common language, that common dictionary of how you describe a product or how you describe a thing within the value chain. And we have standards for retail marketplaces and healthcare in the healthcare sector, which I'll come on to in a minute, in those areas. So as I mentioned, GS1's global. We have 115 organizations around the world. So you'll probably find a GS1 in nearly every country around the world. And we are working with millions of companies around the world in terms of helping them implement GS1 standards, but also the other part of my role and some of my counterparts' role around the world is driving that collaboration between trading partners. So we essentially get competitors around the room together to work on things they can't work on themselves. So my job is essentially bringing the likes of Tesco and Amazon and Sainsbury's together. So say, right, with your trading partners, how can we make your life easier for the end consumer? And that's really a major USP of GS1. So I'm going to go into describe how GS1's been implemented in two sectors, mainly in retail and in healthcare, at a very high level. It's called conscious of time. So we've been in retail for the last 40 years. The supermarkets have been using GS1 standards at point of sale for 40 years. And in the last 5 to 6 years, we've been working with the retailers around how do we go beyond, we've been calling it, how do we go beyond the barcode? So how do we go beyond the barcode in terms of what's inside the product, where does it come from, who owns it, and how can the customer trust that the product is ethical and it's good for them to put in their mouth or put on their skin. So some of the things we've been looking at recently is how do we create that? Someone mentioned it earlier, actually, the product passport. How do we create the product passport of every single product around the world? And GS1 globally right now, we have got a program called Verified by GS1, which is where we built a registry of every single product around the world. And it's been rolled out in 8 countries. And essentially what we want to get to is the answering those questions. Who owns it? Where does it come from? What's inside it? And can it be trusted? So it's really kind of exciting times for GS1 and its kind of member customers and clients. As I said, in GS1 standards have been embedded in UK retail for many years, and all those retailers that are put on the screen here all use GS1 standards. And many of them have been saying, you know, Harshal, shoppers are getting more and more savvy now. They are digitally demanding. Their consumers are fueling disruption, and they want that information. They want more information around the product. And we're seeing that rise in what we're calling trusted standard data. The requirement for allergen information, the requirement for provenance information, the requirement for sustainability information, and new regulations that are coming out, for instance, this year for allergens. So in October this year, FSA are launching new regulations around allergens. Next year, Department of Health are launching new regulations around high fat, sugar and salt. And the retailers are coming to GS1 and saying, GS1, can you first build the standards for this, because we don't want to have different standards by different retailers. But we also want that single way of scanning the product and then capturing the data and then sharing the data. So it's really kind of GS1 really sits in the middle of the supply chain around the retailers and the brands and the kind of the sourcing suppliers to make sure that information is shared effectively between the different parties. So that's a kind of really brief. So I could talk about retail for hours, but I'm going to move on to healthcare now, which is the other big area for GS1. So really exciting. So we've predominantly been a health retail sector organization for many years. And in the last 5-6 years, GS1 UK especially has taken a leadership role in driving GS1 standards that we built in the retail sector into the healthcare sector. And we built a partnership up with the NHS over the last 5 to 6 years, which is essentially looking at 2 main things. One is around operational efficiencies. How do we use our barcoding technology, data standards, and all the tools that we've got in retail to improve saving money, essentially, for the NHS. But then importantly, looking at patient safety, using GS1 numbering and standards for patient wristbands, and essentially identifying the patient at the right place, in the right bed, with the right dose. And I'll explain what we've been doing over the last kind of couple of years. So something called Scan for Safety was developed by the NHS a number of years ago in 2018, and GS1 was a partner. GS1 was a partner to the NHS in terms of implementing this program. So essentially, it was looking at improving patient safety for point of care and using GS1 standards to enable that. We implemented GS1 standards across 6 demonstrator sites, and they were successfully deployed. And there's a document which I can share. Well, I can ask Simon to share afterwards to this group, which talks about the benefits of implementing GS1 standards at point of care for the NHS. Off the back of that Scan for Safety report, last year there was a report by the government on First Do No Harm, which was looking at wrong medicines being given to patients. And you probably remember the Primados scandal that happened many years ago. And this was an investigation into that scandal. And the First Do No Harm study essentially said, we need a registry of every single product with a number, with understanding who owns that product, where does it come from, and where does it sit. So essentially GS1's being a part of that equation too. And then finally, just earlier this year, the government approved the Medicines and Medical Devices Act 2021, was essentially looking at the same thing. How do we have a registry of every single medicines product and ensure that things like anti-counterfeiting doesn't happen, which was talked about previously on the presentation, but ensuring that the right information is available to the patient when that drug has been administered. The last thing on the healthcare side is recently GS1's been working with the government on COVID. So you'll find on the vaccines that are being distributed by the government, you'll find a GS1 number on there. So we've been working with the government essentially around deploying GS1 numbers on the vaccines, not just in the UK but across the world as well. But you'll also find GS1 numbering on PPE kits, on the PPE, but also on the testing kits as well, deployed by the government. So we've been talking to the government over the last 6 to 8 months to ensure that all the good standards that we've got globally, why should they replicate something? There's global standards, so deploy those standards and do it in a really, really good way. And the good news is that they've been doing that, and we're working with our global partners around the world to ensure the same standards are deployed in other countries as well. So really good news on the healthcare front, and we're going to accelerate our work in healthcare over the next year and start looking at things like sterilization and also more track and traceability solutions for trust at a ground level. So more to come on that. So yeah, really brief presentation on what we're doing in retail and in healthcare. And I guess the final slide from me is, as I said earlier, we are now getting more and more requests around, and our retailers and members are getting more requests around understanding where the products come from, and that whole traceability and sustainability element is becoming more and more critical. So coming back to what's inside, who owns it, where does it come from, and is it sustainably sourced? And the rise of that, we're seeing the rise of data. The data requirements, not just from an industry point of view, but from a regulation and government point of view. And our mission and our goal as GS1 is to make sure that we have one way of working between trading partners, but importantly, we create that collaboration and independent network where we create that single language of business. So rather than creating lots more non-value added process, we created one data dictionary for this whole supply chain map. That everyone can use and everyone can work within their ecosystem. So a very brief update. Hopefully you found it very helpful, and I've given my contact details below. So if anyone wants to ask me any direct questions, I'm happy to receive the email from you. Simon, I'll hand back to you.
Thank you, Harshal. That was great trip through there for us. So thank you very much for doing that. We have overrun slightly, but I don't think that's a problem. We are moving to questions, but just before we get to questions, I really need to thank our four speakers. Obviously, Mandy's not with us in here today, but that was great to start off with that story about how digital can really make a difference to your productivity and improve your business. Obviously, then Joe came through and talked about the way that they're using their systems to remove paperwork, to make things as smart as possible. Eser then went on about the value that can be added to certain people's businesses by using that data. And then Harshal, well, there we go, standards for 40 odd years and some of the impact on very serious things in the NHS and other ways. So thank you all for that. That's been fantastic. We are now into questions. We'll see how those go. There are a few in the chat box which we'll get to, but just before that, if anybody actually wants to ask a question in person, on your toolbar you'll have on the right hand side a little reaction button. In those reaction buttons there should be a little hand that you can stick up. If you stick that hand up, hopefully we can unmute you and get you to ask that question in person. First question I've got from the chat box actually for Joe. I can't see your camera on, Joe, so I hope you are still there. Yeah, there's some reaction, so great. It's around what IT skills would a small manufacturer need to use your system. I guess it's thinking if you're let's say a 3-man band and you haven't got an IT department, is that a showstopper?
Yeah, like the whole idea is that you don't need digital skills to use our software. It's been designed to not look like business software and act like business software. It's designed to look and feel like the kind of software you'd use in the evening, like Amazon or Google or whatever. So yeah, no special skills needed. In terms of the actual order tracking, it's the same process of paying for your shopping at the supermarket or paying for a coffee. You're just literally tapping a card to log on and register when you've done things. So no special skills needed at all. Nice and simple.
Simon, maybe I can just ask a follow-up on that to Joe. So is that an API based integration, or do you need to do a bespoke integration, Joe?
So you don't need, like, everything can be done. Oh, what's going on here?
It's me.
got confused there. So we do have an API integration, so you can plug it into, say, an MRP or an ERP system, but it can be used standalone. And yeah, if you're if there's concerns about kind of being too technical, yeah, just using it as a standalone solution. We're in the process of adding in the ability to import Excel documents as well. So if you've already got all your order structures set out, you'll just be able to import them and it'll just kind of create them like that. But what I would say is we do have like a free version and a free trial. So I don't remember who it was who asked that, Simon, but yeah, if they go on our website, you can just sign up, download the app from Google Play, and just, like I always say, just have a play around, just have a go with it and see whether you get anything useful from it. And most people do. And then, yeah, we can do demos, all sorts, loads of info on the website and YouTube and stuff. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you both. There is one in the chat from Amir Rad saying he's got a question for Mr. Gore, and he can explain. Amir, I can't actually see you there. Are you able to unmute yourself and perhaps
yeah,
who you are?
sorry, my camera doesn't work, unfortunately. So can I
please ask your question. If you just say where you're from.
Yeah, I'm from RTC Corporation in London. We sort of give consulting to manufacturers of batteries and recycling, and mainly on the manufacturing side. And my question to Mr. Gore is that a lot of the manufacturers on their either barcode or QR code embed the information for their processes in the manufacturing and raw materials and control, things like that. And if they, especially for their voluntary returns, that when they get a material or a product back, they can see when it was produced, how it was produced, what shift it was produced, what material was used. Now, one of the things you mentioned, if that same barcode or QR code to be used to give information to the users of the product, is there a way that you can separate the type of information that if the barcode or QR code is scanned at the factory, they get one set of information, and if the user in the market gets that scan, get different set of information limited to where it was manufactured and the details like that the manufacturers are happy for the end users to see.
Hi, Amira. I mean, it's quite a detailed question for me, I guess. I mean, just to replay it back, I think you're essentially saying, is there something that can use for the consumer versus could you use something which is in your closed loop kind of manufacturing processes? I guess, I mean, the answer is yes. I know that there's big brands that I speak to in the food and drink sector that do that. That essentially, in terms of tracking and tracing their products up and down their upstream supply chains, they use barcodes and QR codes. I think at the moment there's probably over stickering going on in that process rather than going all the way to the end consumer. So that at the moment, the end consumer will see the GS1 number, which is the lined number, and then potentially the QR code. And the brands then they take over the over stickering for their internal processes for their kind of end-to-end value chain. I mean, I can pick up with you separately if you want to have a chat.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you both. I've looked through the chat box, and I think most of the questions have been answered by people live. So obviously we are a network organisation, so we'd love to have some of that informal networking that was described at the start. But I'm just going to give it one more chance. If anybody wants to hit that reaction button and stick their hand up and ask a question, we'll go with that. Okay, sorry, I've just got one in. Nita's just dropped one in for me, so it was sent to her. This is going to be the final question before we go to the networking, and it's for Joe again. You've been very popular this morning, Joe. Does the presented capability cover the entire supply chain as well as logistic elements, and will it have smart contract capability?
So I suppose we're creating the first version of this in the next 6 months. So what I've presented so far, I suppose, covers, like I wrote this down from what Mandy was saying. So what it will cover is, I suppose, customer to supplier communication and that customer service piece, the visibility of subcontract. So being able to, if you subcontract something out, still being able to see what work's being done, where we're up to, when it's going to be delivered, and that reduction of lost time. What we can do in the future, but probably aren't going to be a focus of the next 6 months, are that product passport and the visibility of raw material. So we're not trying to do the whole supply chain. We're just trying to do the kind of those interactions between two companies at this point. What I will say, though, is we have the capabilities to do it long term, we will be able to do it. So the idea of the project originally, before we kind of put the application in, was that we almost do the bottom half of the supply chain, because we've got software that's originally aimed for small and micro manufacturers, and we've kind of drifted towards medium as well, that we'll kind of fill in that kind of missing bit of information that's not currently there from a digital point of view. And yeah, like we're already planning kind of the work after this next 6 months. And if the project is a success, and this is just a feasibility study at this point, and we are able to go on to the next stage, which is the industrial research, that's where we'll probably look to go. So the idea would be, we'd be not just trying it out across 2 rungs of a supply chain or 3 rungs, but 4, 5, and across multiple supply chains, and see whether we can string that data together. Because by us building an inventory solution, we already have the capability to add in product passports. We can track what materials have gone into which orders and which products have come out. And the next step would be the product that comes out becomes a material that goes into another supply chain. And how do we kind of stack all that information on top of each other? But yeah, in the short term, it's very much just how can we allow one person to provide information to another in the most painless fashion.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Joe. Eser, apologies we didn't have a question for you. I've got loads of questions in my own mind, and that whole experience bit has really raised some questions for me around potential circular economy, net zero, but we'll deal with that another time. So thank you, speakers, once again. That's been fantastic. Thank you also to my colleagues in the background, Anita, for hosting and doing the dirty work in the background today. I know Nilam, Kevin, Nicole, Nigel, and a lot of others have made it a lot easier for me to do this here today. So thanks, everybody.